Hey there, everybody. Welcome into this edition of, Showtime with Ira Schoffel. He'll have a much better voice than I do. I don't know what's going on with me right now, Ira. Don't be nervous, though. We're going to get off the ground on this one. We'll be smooth running here. All the questions today coming from our Warchant subscribers. If you're not a subscriber, use the promo code Warchant30 for 30 free days of access to the ultimate Seminoles sports source. It's a bye week, but there's a lot to talk about. Why don't you say so, Ira? How do you size things up going to the first bye week of the season?
I would. Look, this is the best I think anybody's felt about this Florida State football team in a couple of years, maybe 3 years. Going back to probably the beginning of 2017, right around the time DeAndre Francois went down with a knee injury. This is probably, I think, the best people are feeling about at least seeing progress, at least seeing some things go in the right direction. The rest of 2017 obviously was kind of a disaster, especially once everything was happening with Jimbo and Texas A&M. 2018 never got off on the right foot, never found any footing. 2019 got off to a little bit of a tough start, and then they rebounded. So this isn't a high watermark in terms of college football or Florida State history, but I think you have to be feeling pretty good about the last couple of weeks.
Right. Florida State heads into Clemson next week. Again, it's a bye week. The Noles did get 3 days of practice in, and then they'll head to Death Valley next week and take on number 2 Clemson. I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions. Again, all of our questions come from the Tribal Council on warchant.com. Use the promo code Warchant30 for 30 free days of access. With that said, Ira, let's go ahead and dive into the first question, and it comes from the Noles 614. That's a good name. I like that one. His thoughts. He wants your thoughts, Ira, on if Hornibrook starts against Clemson and the chances against the Tigers.
I don't think Hornibrook starts. I think they'll start with James Blackman. Willie Taggart was so emphatic before the NC State game that if James Blackman was healthy, he was going to be the starter. Hornibrook got the start. They said James wasn't 100% healthy. I'm not 100% sure of how, whether or not all of that was on the up and up. Maybe James was never healthy. Maybe he did tweak his knee the day before the game. Whatever the case was, I don't think Hornibrook played so amazingly well in that game that you'd say, sorry, James, you're done now. So I think James is still going to be the starter. But I think it's going to be different than it was, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, where James, it's your game no matter what. If he struggles, I don't think they would hesitate at all to go to Alex Hornibrook. As far as Florida State's chances, I think they've got a chance. Not a great chance, but I don't think it's a 0% chance. Corey and I argued about that a little bit earlier in the week. I think that, certainly people have I'm not going to say they found the recipe to give Clemson's offense a hard time, but it's pretty clear that Trevor Lawrence doesn't like all the attention he's getting from pass rushes, and he's getting hit a lot. He's getting hurried a lot. He's not the same guy when he has to move and make throws as he is when he gets to sit back and really dissect you. Now, the question is, can Florida State get that kind of pressure? That's the question to me. I think if Florida State can get pressure on Trevor Lawrence, I think that they can make it interesting, because I think Florida State's offense is going to have some success. The question is, can they really get to him like some other teams have? And that's what we'll have to see. If you believe Florida State can get some pressure on Trevor Lawrence, then you think Florida State's got a chance. I'm not sure on there right now.
Do you feel like the physical, schematic stuff is more important than mental, emotional sort of preparation? Corey was talking about it on the podcast about he just hopes that this team is ready to compete and believes they can compete after what happened last year. I think Willie's done a really great job motivating this team in some stark situations this season. I wouldn't think anything would be any different. I think they will go into that game quite confident. I think that's really the most important thing for them.
Yeah, it's hard to say 100% because you don't know how they're going to respond to being in that kind of environment. They have been on the road this season, but nothing quite like this. It's a fair question, but I don't think a lack of confidence is this team's biggest problem. I think it's some deficiencies in talent at certain positions, particularly the offensive line and maybe at linebacker. But I think they're going to go in with a chip on their shoulder, which is kind of what this team's had all along, especially in these last few weeks. And I think that if it's going to probably depend on how they do early. I think if they go out there and if they get down 2 scores and the crowd really gets into it and Etienne starts breaking off long runs, it could be a long day. But I think at Florida State, I don't think going into the game the mental parts are going to be a big problem. I think if they struggle, then it could be a big problem, just like it would be for anybody.
All right. Well, let's get to the next question from our subscribers on warchant.com and the Tribal Council. It comes from Bo Noles asking, would you rather Florida State have a 6'7", 235-pound defensive end or a Nefi Moffitt-like defensive end who is 6'1", 235. We are obviously lacking at that position, defensive end or outside linebacker. Curious as to what body type you feel is the best fit for this defensive scheme.
It seems like to me that they're going to be going for those longer guys that can play. I do think that they want to go to a 3-4 long term. This wasn't just about this season. We talked a lot about it was kind of out of necessity because they didn't have a lot of true pass rushers, and so maybe that was why. But I also think that just from what I've seen in terms of their recruiting, it seems like they're going for more of those kind of outside linebacker guys that can drop back in coverage, but also get after the quarterback. So I'm thinking leaner guys. But, man, it depends. I don't know if Nefi Moffitt's the model, but there's some other guys out there. There's a guy that played for the Colts. Kind of the shorter.
Not Bob Sanders.
No, pass rusher.
Dwight Freeney?
Freeney, yeah, Freeney. Somebody like that obviously would be awesome. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think they're going to go for longer guys that can play in space. I think they like the Josh Kandos. I think they like that. But you have to have guys that can play in space as well and not, get exposed when they do have to cover somebody. A
little bit of a spoiler. I showed the question before I asked it. Terrible at this, Ira. Get rusty. We take 1 week off and I get all rusty, man.
And just to follow up on that, the reason is I think they feel like the impression I get, I'm not in the coach's meetings room, but just from hearing what they've said on different topics, different conversations on this topic, is I think they feel like with spread offenses that you have to have versatile players, and you can't necessarily have guys that have one responsibility, like, hey, you go after the passer. They want to be able to, because you can't always substitute. So I think they want versatile defensive ends. So I think you're going to see guys that are longer, leaner, that can rush the passer, but also play in coverage.
All right, very well. This guy would be nice to have, maybe rushing the passer on a safety blitz. Question comes from CGJ0198. Might be from Moscow, not 100% sure. Does Travis Jay get cleared before the end of the season? It would be nice for him to get in some game reps this year and then possibly redshirt.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. I don't have it definitively from anybody at FSU that there's no chance that Travis Jay is going to play this year. But we're already a month in, and I've asked a couple people if they expect him to be back anytime soon, and it didn't sound like they did expect him to be back anytime soon. He's still practicing with the team. He can't dress on game days. I don't know exactly if the class that was flagged from the clearinghouse, I don't know if it's a situation where they've already been told no chance, but it doesn't look good. So I wouldn't expect Travis Jay to play. And at some point you get to a point where, how much of the season is worth it for losing the year of eligibility? Is it worth it to play 5 games? Now, he's a guy that maybe doesn't stay in college 4 years. Right now, he might not think he's a guy that's going to stay in college 4 years. But that also becomes a factor at some point. Now, you can play in 4 games and still maintain your eligibility for that season. But, if it's 5 or 6, I don't know if you roll the dice.
Yeah, it's crazy because if you would have asked me would you rather have Akeem Dent available or Travis Jay, I probably would have said Akeem Dent just because he was on campus earlier. And maybe it's that whole what you've seen and what the unknown seems so much more, sizzle factor, I guess. But, Akeem is getting a little bit better, but you do wonder just how much of a help Travis Jay could be on the back end because the front 7 seems like they're getting a little bit better, and Travis Jay was a guy that they had pretty high hopes for. So a bit of a bummer. But, yeah, if he does get eligible at some point, he would be able to play 4 games because of that redshirt rule, so that's a good thing. Next question, we got the SEC portion of the show, Ira. E. Taylor 061 wants to know, what situation would you rather go through? A, be a quarterback for Jimbo Fisher and get chewed out by him on ABC primetime, or B, have Jeremy Pruitt be your contact to help you when you get arrested?
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if Jeremy helped that situation. He seemed to be a little dismissive of our officers of the peace. I'm going to go with I'd get yelled at by Jimbo. I know you're not going to believe that because you think I'm anti-Jimbo, but I mean, obviously, I think I could take it. I think I could handle it and compartmentalize it and hear what he's saying, not how he's saying it. I'd probably talk badly about him when he wasn't around, but yeah, I think I'd go with being screamed at by Jimbo. I don't know if I would. I don't think I would. It'd be interesting to see how you'd handle it. Would you handle? Would you show him up and act like you're not, time for this, or like Jameis maybe did a little bit towards the end, or would you, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, like Christian Ponder.
For all the pro Jimbo talk I put out there, I would not do well with his kind of coaching. I'd go diva. I'd be like, get out of my face, man. You 5'8" midget, get out of my face. Would not work out well, but I probably would rather get chewed out by him than have Jeremy Pruitt be my lifeline to get me out of the clink. So, Noles 92 asked another question involving the SEC. How do we get into the SEC West?
Why would you want to do that? That's a joke.
I don't know. It's just...
just for the prestige, I guess. But man, alive. Good luck with that. Yeah, that's one division I would want no part of. You don't want to be there. That's and I'm not one of these that the SEC is the best conference in the world every year. But that division particularly is really good. All those teams are at a high right now, especially with Auburn playing so well and LSU having a quarterback. It's crazy with that. And I think Texas A&M is good. So, and they're probably going to finish, fourth in that division. So I would say, you don't want to be there. And Florida State's not getting in the SEC. That's not happening. I think Florida State's in the ACC until maybe college football gets blown up and these Power 5 schools become like just one big league or two big divisions or something like that. But I don't think FSU's leaving the ACC in the current setup.
Next question comes from Squiffy Knoll. Parking is quite tight on campus during football season. You visit the practice fields most days. Do you have a special parking pass? How far away do you park? Does FSU provide a workspace for you to prepare stories while on site? I'm curious.
It's a bye week. If you didn't know it's a bye week, it's a bye week now.
Welcome.
Aslan, you can answer these too. So we do get parking passes. One of the nice perks of the media, we get a parking pass that pretty much during the days lets us park anywhere. We can park where faculty park. We can park where students park. We run the show. We've got better, people, I don't know if people realize that people that work at FSU, like the staff members, have to pay for parking. Like the people in sports information and those departments, they actually have to pay for the parking passes. We don't. Media does not. So that's a nice little perk that we have. If there's space spots available, we can park pretty close. On game day, we're not so close, but we're not so far. We park in the garage over by softball and soccer. It's a little bit easier for me to make that haul than Aslan, who's got about 500 pounds of gear that he carries in his wagon. And I think that's maybe next year we'll see if Gene can come up with like a motorized wagon for you, like a Segway wagon.
Oh, that'd be
we'll
nice.
See. If we have a big year in 2019.
Like a John Deere and just pull it behind me. All right, I'm all about that. Yeah, shout out to Gene for getting me that wagon. It's made my life much, much easier. All right, Ira, you wanted a real question. Here you go, man. Buckle up. This comes from the Heartland. Comes from Wichita, Kansas. Heartland Knoll 27. Alex Hornibrook has come in and deserves a start, period. He's a senior. He came here to FSU for this, and now he's been a big part in 2 wins. Yes, defensive improvement is huge as well, but he deserves to stay the starter. His stats are slightly better. Very slightly, but better. He has a quarterback's poise and communication factor about him that only comes with experience. Why put that at second string just to wait and see if Blackman messes up? He has seen and hit open receivers in key situations when Blackman has not. I mean, we beat UVA if so. Wouldn't it make more sense to start a guy that has won, has more experience, and wait to see if he hits a wall, and then put in Blackman if so? James Blackman has always been talked about as an amazing teammate and leader. He knows this program is going forward if Alex Hornibrook can't keep it up. That dude is only a sophomore and he's not leaving early. I'm confused why it's as big of a situation as it is.
Yeah, that's a well-reasoned approach. I don't know that it takes everything into consideration. I think that there's 2 things that I think you have to consider is the big picture going back to last season and the way Willie Taggart handled DeAndre Francois versus James Blackman and stuck with DeAndre Francois and didn't just jump to James Blackman when he had one good game. I think the message you'd be sending to James Blackman would be pretty tough if when you passed for 400 and something yards against NC State and he came back the next week and went right back to Francois, if a year later your backup comes in when you're injured and he plays pretty well, doesn't throw for 400 and something yards, and you switch right away and put him to the bench. I think that would be tough for James Blackman to swallow. I think it would be a little bit of an issue. I don't think it would be as huge of an issue on the team. I think going into the season, we all thought, hey, everybody loves James. There's no way they're going to play for anybody else. It would be a disaster. I don't know if that's the case. I think they do believe in Alex Hornibrook, and I think that they think he can play. I don't think everything would fall apart, but I think from a consistency standpoint, to be fair to James Blackman, I think that's what you would do. The other factor that I think is important is I don't think if things were going poorly, I don't know if I'd feel good about putting Blackman into that situation. I would feel better about if things aren't going well, going to Alex Hornibrook. I just the reasons he mentioned, Alex seems to have a calmness and a poise where he doesn't seem to get as rattled. James did seem to get a little bit rattled in those clutch situations. So from that standpoint, I'd rather if you're going to have one start and one come off the bench, I think their personalities are better suited to start James and then go to Hornibrook. That's my theory. I know you talked about it as well, but any merit to what I'm saying, or were you?
I mean, I parrot most of what you say. I just think, I think Willie's pretty consistent in his approach and his philosophy on things. So if James Blackman going for 400 and, a pair of touchdowns or 3 touchdowns last year in Raleigh wasn't enough to take over DeAndre, I don't know how what Hornibrook did is enough to do so. And I agree with, Heartland Noles' question, you saying the same thing, that he's more of an Iceman, I guess, Hornibrook. Like, things are getting too crazy. You need everyone to chill out. Like, you put in Hornibrook. I don't know if a whole bunch of people are going crazy and it's a 28-3 game. If James comes in, if he's the calming presence in this sort of huddle. And yeah, to your point, man, I don't know if it's even so much that the team believes in James or Alex as much as they just believe in Kendall and what he's done on offense, and whoever they put in there is going to give them the best chance to win. So I don't see any sort of a mutiny or uprising if it is Hornibrook that starts. But again, to the point, man, just these guys, I mean, statistically, win-loss record, they're pretty equal. And who's to say that James Blackman wouldn't have beat NC State to the degree that Hornibrook did? Maybe better, maybe worse.
Yeah,
who knows? But I get the thing. Everyone is thinking, just last thing, I think everyone has the UVA game. If you beat Virginia, you're 4-1 going to this game, and you're probably ranked. And the fact that James missed 2 throws in that game, I think really it bothers a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that Alex makes those throws, at least for sure one of them. So I get where they're coming from. The other part of this that you can't forget, and I should have mentioned earlier, but coaches, they preach process. They preach the importance of preseason camp and all of those weeks of practice, and they preach much more than there's nothing coaches hate more than when people say, oh, maybe so and so's a gamer, and yeah, maybe so and so beat him out, but look at him in the games. Every coach I've ever dealt with is reluctant to ever go down that path. And I think if they say that over the course of 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever it was, that James Blackman proved he should be the guy, they're not quick to just flip on that because Alex Hornibrook looked good over a game and a half. So I think that's another factor. I just think those are some of the reasons why they're not going to go with why I don't think they're going to go with Hornibrook to start.
Let's go to the Diamond, Ira. Next question comes from Jimbo11. Coach Martin said he's cleaned out a couple lockers. Who was he referencing?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have read these questions before. We did this because when he said that the other day, I actually meant to go back and look. I know that there were a couple guys early on, and this may be who he referenced. Right after Mike Martin Jr. got the job, they had a couple of players who were freshmen last season that basically went on social media and said, hey, we're transferring to junior colleges. When I found out later was that, Mike Martin Jr. had conversations with them, and I don't think he was necessarily thrilled with their approach. They weren't necessarily thrilled that he was going to be the head coach, and they mutually agreed to part ways. I don't know if there's been anybody else since then. The way he said it when we talked to him, and if people haven't seen it, there was an interview that we did with Mike Martin Jr. last week that you can find on YouTube or on our message board, the baseball message board. Corey also did a Q&A with him that's going to be on the site this weekend. But the comment about the cleaning out lockers, it almost sounded like it was fresher than that, but I haven't gone back to look. Baseball rosters are hard, man, because guys are coming and going, especially in the summer and the fall. There are guys on that team right now who won't be here in the spring. Now, not necessarily the superstars, but baseball rosters are so much different than football rosters.
Yeah, I pulled up the roster real quick here. I mean, the guys that everyone knows that were young, Nander DeSadas and Cooper Swansons and your Clint Kwiatkowskis and, Antonio Velez, Robbie Martin, Matthew Nelson, Elijah Cabell, all those guys, they're still there. They're still there.
Yeah, the key guys are still there.
I mean, I don't want to call a guy. I know Alex Sanchez was a guy that saw some spot duty, and he was one of the guys that I think went on social media and said he was transferring out. So I don't think anybody who really maybe started more than 20 games was part of the process that we knew about in the summer. But yeah, as we get a better, clearer shot of the roster, we should know. But I don't think so. I think Meat was just trying to say that it's a new era. I had to do what I had to do, kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes. Next question, as we scroll down here on the Tribal Council on Warchant.com, FSU JLM. Here's an easy one. Not really. When will Jim Leavitt take over as defensive coordinator? Plot twist, Ira, has Jim Leavitt already taken over as defensive coordinator?
I do not think it's going to happen during the season. I think there was a chance of that when they got just destroyed in the first couple of games, and then the ULM game. When Jim Leavitt came in that week, I started thinking, man, they may right now, the week before Clemson, the 2 weeks before Clemson, they might make a switch. But the defense kind of turned things around, and then you start hearing things around the program that Jim Leavitt and Harlan Barnett get along really well, which doesn't surprise me. I've heard independently from different coaches say that Jim Leavitt's a likable guy, and I know other people really like Harlan Barnett. So they seem to be working well. There's no real benefit I don't think there's any huge benefit to replacing Harlan Barnett at this point, because again, somebody has to coach DBs. That's not really Jim Leavitt's specialty. Not saying he couldn't, but I don't know that that's the answer. He's always traditionally been more of a linebackers coach, and you have one of those. And you have Jim Leavitt. He can do almost everything. He just can't be running drills, showing guys physically what to do. But how much of that is the defensive coordinator's job anyway? I think, especially if you have a linebackers coach, he can work with the assistant coaches and kind of tell them what he'd like to see. He can consult Harlan Barnett on the game plan and also on personnel. So I think you're fine with what you've got. Now, at the end of the season, you have to kind of see what Jim Leavitt wants to do. Jim Leavitt, I think everybody assumes Jim Leavitt definitely wants to be the defensive coordinator next year. He may have other opportunities. If we know nothing else, Jim Leavitt's going to play the field. He's going to want to know what else is out there. I think that's one of the reasons he wasn't beloved maybe at Oregon, because he was a guy that he wants to be a head coach. He wants to see what else is out there. So if he wants to stay and be the defensive coordinator, and that's the only way he stays, then I think Harlan probably gets sent packing or reassigned. But you have to figure that part out before you do anything else. Unless you just decide Harlan Barnett can't be the guy, then you make that switch. And if Leavitt doesn't want it, then you go find somebody else. But I don't think anything during the season.
Right. No, I agree. My thing, though, is why would Leavitt come back to be an analyst if he's not going to be the coordinator? I mean, is it like the passion of being a coach?
No. With somebody, I asked that question to somebody else, and they said there's a reason all those guys go to Alabama for the year. It's not a good thing to be a coach in college football and be away from the game for a year. For your marketability, you're much better off saying I was an analyst at Florida State, I was an analyst at Alabama, I was an analyst at Clemson, than it is to be out of the game for a full year. So I think that, to me, that's as much as. And if Florida State shows success this year, from the time he came in until the end of the year, that just adds to his marketability.
There you go. That's why we have Ira. That's why it's called Showtime, people. That's good insight. D Wolf 1, Ira, love Warchant, all the coverage you, Corey, Gene, and Aslan provide, all of this debate over who the starting quarterback should be. Why not just name James and Alex co-starters the rest of the season? There's not much separation between the two, and you force the opposing team to prepare for both. For the record, I would start the game with James and know you have a veteran seasoned senior quarterback that you can bring in at a moment's notice, and I would definitely play both the remainder of the year. Finally, I don't think the staff is getting as much credit as they should for convincing Hornibrook to come here. That is looking like a coup now, when some were questioning the thought process when it first happened. Again, love what you guys do each and every day at Warchant.
Thanks, man. That's a great testimonial. He should have been, he was probably not thinking about Michael because he was speaking of team coverage. I'm sure he feels the same way about Michael and Austin, the intern.
Yeah.
The whole crew, the whole posse. I think, first of all, I do think the staff deserves credit for getting Hornibrook. And, I don't know exactly. It sounds like I'd still love to know the inside story. Maybe one day we'll be able to tell it of how exactly he came to be a part of this program. I get the sense that, I think Willie made a comment once that they knew somebody that had contact with Hornibrook. I also wonder if Kendall Briles maybe had or he had somebody, an intermediary. but I would really love to know more about that because I think maybe when you asked Alex in Louisiana, maybe he wasn't real open about it. It just seems like it's something that they haven't mapped it out exactly how it came to be. But no, I agree. And at the time, I thought it was a good solution because I think we talked about it at the time because Hornibrook wasn't a guy that was going to scare away James. If you brought in Jalen Hurts or the kid that went to Ohio State, one of those kind of big time quarterbacks, then I think James maybe sees the writing on the wall and leaves. But Hornibrook's a guy that James thought he could compete with. And on the flip side, I think Hornibrook probably figured he could compete with James Blackman, and he has. The co-starting quarterbacks thing, if you go back to the beginning of the season, that's what Kendall said. Kendall, out of camp, when they announced that James Blackman would be the starter, Kendall Briles' comment to the media was, I feel like we've got two starting quarterbacks. So I think that was his evaluation. I don't think that they felt strongly about either one. I think the tiebreaker for James might have been more just how the team felt about him and the time he's invested in the program. They gave him that opportunity. He's played pretty well. I mean, the other part of it is Alex has played well and James has had some shortcomings, but he's also, from a statistical standpoint, James's numbers are great. So it's not like he's been a dog. So I don't know. Maybe you could say maybe that's just a product of this offense, and with this kind of talent, they're going to have that kind of success. But I don't think either one of them has been so bad that you'd rule them out. So I don't know if they'll come out and say that there's co-starting quarterbacks, but I kind of feel like that's how they're going to view them going forward. No matter who would start, I think the other one would be quick off the bench if anything went wrong.
Do you think there's any question that could be asked or posed to Willie coming here this week that he would announce a starting quarterback, or do you think he'll play it pretty, mum and evade and not want to answer that question?
I think if we start off with, is James fully healthy now? I think then that kind of, he's going to answer that, I would think, truthfully. And if he says still day to day, then I think we say, hey, so does that mean he's still the guy if he's healthy? And we may be right back where we were, but if he's healthy, it wouldn't shock me if he came out and said he's the starter. I would be stunned if he came out and said that Alex Hornibrook was a starter. That would shock me, but maybe that's my personal bias. I don't know. I think there are plenty of people who think it's a no-brainer that Hornibrook should be the starter. I have a hard time seeing it.
Next question. We had some good ones. Let's get a little crazy now. Max Diesel. Gentlemen, you're both stranded on an island together. Only have one restaurant that can deliver food to you. Spirit, Zaxby's. You have to both arrive at the same answer. Which is it? Do we arm wrestle? Do we arm wrestle you and I to figure out what it's going to be?
Well, this is a Warchant production, correct?
Right.
So I think we're going Zaxby's. And the nice thing about Zaxby's that you guys never really talk about, because you guys aren't huge fountain drink drinkers. You enjoy a fountain drink. Like Corey, I think he's whatever. But man, it's their soda experience with the 65 flavors.
Oh, yeah.
It's got 300 flavors. Is there an infinite amount of flavors? Whatever it is, it's unbelievable. So yeah, if we could have that soda machine on the island, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And I think undersold. I think it's like 120 options. It's incredible. It's incredible. Too much of anything is too much, but that is not too much. Next question. Let's get back to football here. Nole Magic with a J. Is there any realistic scenario that we stay close to Clemson with our offensive line, or will it be a national embarrassment like last year? When I watch our O-line play, I see a stunning amount of 3-and-outs against Clemson, and I see this game getting really ugly by the third quarter. Come on, Nole Magic. Where's the belief, man? Come on.
When you put it like that, I think they've done a good job of scheming around it. I think NC State had a good defensive line. It's not like they've not gone up against any defensive lineman this season. I think Virginia had a pretty good pass rush, and NC State definitely did. I think they'll scheme to help the situation. It's a problem. It's not going to be a good offensive line anytime this season. I don't know that it's going to be. To me, the key is going to be on defense. What determines whether or not it's a blowout, because I think the offense will be okay. I think it'll put up maybe 17, 21 points, something like that, maybe 24 points. Hard time seeing a whole lot more than that at Death Valley. To me, it's all going to come down to the defense. And if the defense is can maintain what they've been doing against the run, not give up any busted plays where Travis Etienne just breaks off a 60-yarder or 70-yarder, then I think they're going to be okay. Would give them a chance to, and I was said earlier, what would give them a chance to, I think, to win would be really getting a lot of pressure on Trevor Lawrence. Go back to last season, that game here in Tallahassee, the first quarter, they were all over him, and he was not enjoying it. He played poorly in that first quarter of that game. Now, he was a lot younger. He was a true freshman. So, but that seems to be, if you're going to have any success against Clemson's offense, it's going to be getting pressure on him, trying to get him to move outside the pocket. And so I think Florida State's going to do that. I don't know if they're going to be successful at it, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout like last year. I just don't think the defense is going to play that bad. So even if the offensive line's bad, which I don't think it's going to be good, I don't think that's how you give up 60, 70 points. You give up 60 points when the defense just collapses, and I don't see that happening. Do you?
No, I think it's going to be a good game. I really do. I don't even think Florida State averaged a whole positive yard on the. I think the yards per carry. I think I saw something last night. It was like negative. They were like, when you factor in sacks, they were like negative 0.6 yards per carry. So it's obviously not going to be that bad. I think with the way I'm kind of counter to you. I really think it's all on the offense how this game will play out, because the way this offense is schemed and drawn up is that you just got to win first down. You win first down and you get 17 yards, then you go tempo, and then that's when you catch it. Even a team like Clemson that's got a great talent and athletes everywhere, like you just catch them off guard. There's a little bit of confusion. They don't know who to cover, and then that's when guys start running wide open, and that's how Florida State's been scoring against FBS teams that are non-Power 5, Group of 5 schools, and how they've been scoring against Power 5 conference foes. So, that's the way they put points on the opposition, and I think they'll find ways to do that. But I think Clemson ultimately just finds a way to stifle enough drives and puts enough drives together themselves to pull out the win. But I think it'll be close.
Well, if you think the offense, the onus is on the offense, and it's going to be about winning first down and making good decisions early in the possession, that kind of, you would think, maybe kind of alludes to maybe Alex Hornibrook. But I guess my question, I don't know. I guess my thing with James is, do you think there becomes a point where he settles down? Like, is that something you can develop, or do you think that's what you are?
No.
I think that's my question. Yeah,
I know what you're saying, and I don't think you can change that kind of part of your personality and the way it's ingrained in you. It was one of the things that I kind of was hoping that Willie would be able to, because Willie's the motivator, able to talk to these kids and really level with them better than anybody else they've had at this university since they've been here. But because you have Kendall handling everything, calling the plays, coordinating the offense. If you're Willie, you would really hope that he kind of put his arms around and figure out a way to, like, you have to calm down. Like, we love the fire, but the fire is just too much.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something you can shake out of you. I guess to your point, then that becomes a really tough thing to kind of navigate and manage when you're playing in that kind of atmosphere. But, hey, man, he's had good first quarters, James Blackman. And maybe, when you feel the spiral beginning, then you're able to go to Alex Hornibrook, and it's not as it doesn't hurt you as much this time around, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right. Next question comes from Reginald. That's good. I think his name is probably Reginald, but he just spells it Reginald. Awesome. If you, Ira, or Corey will ask Coach Willie or Coach Odell or Coach Barnett or Analyst Levitt, do they coach the defensive line, linebackers, or secondary when they are rushing or blitzing the quarterback when they know it's a pass to put their hands up? If they do coach it, they're not doing it. There's an exclamation mark. I had to put a little umph into it, Ira. I know other teams do it. I see it every Saturday, but it seems we don't ever do it. Put your darn hands up and block the pass or deflect the ball. This is so infuriating to me.
Yeah, I think there was a game. Was it Louisville? It might have been Virginia, where they were really bad about not doing it. I think it was Virginia, and the Perkins kid just completed a bunch of passes, and it looked like if FSU's defensive linemen they just got their hands up, they might have deflected some of those passes. I think it was Virginia, might have been Louisville, but it seemed like they've got better last game or two. I think that's become a point of emphasis because just like fans notice it and media noticed it, I think I'm sure the coaches noticed it as well. That's usually two things. It is something that's coached. It's definitely something they're coached. They're not taught to do it all the time, but if they know that they can't if their initial surge, if their initial move or their counter move can't get into the backfield, and they realize they're kind of being stymied, they are supposed to recognize whether or not the pass is coming their way and get their hands up. Some guys, though, have a great feel for it. I feel like Jacoby McDaniel was good at it. Like, there's been different guys that just really have a good feel for it, and there's other guys that don't. So Bjorn Werner, I think, maybe was good about it.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's something they do talk to him about. But I also think that in the heat of battle, sometimes guys forget it. And I think I think it was Virginia where they just completely forgot about it. Guys were not doing it at all. And it's up to the coaches to remind them, because that is something that they're taught. It did seem like they got better. I think they had some more deflections the last week or two. But it's something to certainly watch going forward.
Next question from the Tribal Council on Warchant.com comes from Virgil Starkwell. Will the defense sit back in that zone, or will they be aggressive and force the quarterback to make quick throws? He will pick us apart. I don't know. If we do blitz, can we mix it up? Seems like our defensive players are always matched up. They know what we are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see what they do. I do think they're going to try to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence. And I don't think anybody thinks that they're going to do it with their front three or front four. So that means blitzing. And that likely means some man coverage, which I think a lot of fans would be happy about. The problem is Clemson's got great receivers. I mean, Justin Ross, and I mean, they've got a lot of talent receiver. Then you got Etienne coming out of the backfield. So there's some risk and reward there. But I think that if you're going to die on a hill against Clemson, you're going to die on the hill of trying to get pressure and making Trevor Lawrence make plays on the move. I think I don't think Florida State's going to sit back. And if they do, yeah, he's going to throw for 450 yards. I just don't. I think they know that, and I'd be surprised if they sat back. The thing with Bryce Perkins was they thought he was an inaccurate quarterback. They thought if they sat back that he'd throw it to them. Right. If they let him throw enough, that he would throw it to them. Well, he didn't. The throws were so easy that he never had to. But Trevor Lawrence isn't that guy. They're going to come after him. The question is whether or not they can get there.
Next question comes from Plethora1. It seems obvious that one of our biggest weaknesses is our offensive line, despite the great ability of Browse and Clements to mask that glaring weakness. Assuming the reason is the quality of players at those positions, that isn't going to get much better this year. Is it realistic to make significant improvements next year with JUCO transfers and underclassmen here or coming in? That is assuming we do not lose Browse nor Clements in the offseason.
Yeah, that's a great question. Ryan Roberts was a nice stopgap this year at right tackle, fifth-year senior transfer. I think that's the route more than JUCO. I'm not a huge fan of JUCO players at any position, but certainly not on the offensive line. I just think that, I can't go through the statistics, but I imagine the hit rate on junior college offensive linemen has got to be awful across the country. You just don't see that be very successful. I can come up with some theories on why that is, but the bottom line is, I don't think that's the way to go. I think it's either high school kids and fifth-year seniors, and really that's going to be the key to – that's why the season's so important, showing some reasons for kids to believe that if they come here, they're going to have success. Ryan Roberts is a good story. That's something you can sell. Hey, we've had kids come in and come in as a fifth-year guy, step in right away, start every game, become a team leader. You can be that guy next season. I don't know that they need 5 of them. I think, we're impressed by Dante Lucas. I think Davion Johnson's been okay. I think Brady Scott's been okay for the most part. But and I think they like the freshmen. I think they really like the freshman class. The kid from Pensacola, Washington, is that?
Yeah, Darius,
is that right?
Darius Washington.
Is Darius Washington. I think they like the Maurice Smith kid. I mean, I think they like those freshman offensive linemen. The problem is they haven't really got much out of that other class, the class that was sophomores now, the Christian Armstrongs and Christian Meadows, and those guys haven't really developed. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen. So they do still need a stopgap or two. I think it would be good to get another one or two fifth-year guys. But I think between what they've got and then those freshman offensive linemen, and then you got to recruit better than you have right now. The offensive linemen they've got committed. It's nice that they have some, but they're kind of project types or diamonds in the rough. So we'll see how they turn out to be. But if you have a strong second half of the season, maybe beat Florida, beat Miami, then you can pick up a couple of nice offensive linemen. Dante Lucas was really a fluke because Telly Lockett had just a great relationship with the family. Unless you produce on the field, you're not going to get great offensive linemen like Dante Lucas, I don't think.
And it's got to be kind of hard, too, to, I don't know, sell a kid that's playing in the MAC to, I guess if they're really good and they've exhausted 4 years, they'll probably try to go to the NFL and make a career out of it. And if not, I don't know how many guys are going to, want to use a fifth year. And then, there are a lot of guys who want to hang on and keep playing, which is a good thing. But, the amount of talent or quality you're going to be able to get out of them is, probably Ryan Roberts is like your best case kind of scenario. So I don't know how much better you would get by continuing that avenue, but it's better than JUCO. To your point, for sure, it's much better than JUCO. So next question comes from FJ Knoll 04. While our defense has greatly improved from the first 2 games, I'm curious as to what percentage we run man versus zone. We clearly are underperforming on the back end of our defense, but have the horses to get the job done.
Yeah, I think they're going to continue to play more man than zone because I think they're going to blitz more, especially against a team like Clemson. So I think you're going to see more transition towards man. I think the defensive backs seem more comfortable with that. Now, when they did play zone, the last game, I thought they looked more comfortable doing it. You saw guys coming up and making plays. You don't have to be passive in a zone. You can be active in a zone. You can be aggressive. So maybe that's where Jim Leavitt helps. Maybe that's where he's a guy in a meeting room is conveying that and getting those guys across. There's too much talent in that secondary to play as bad as they have. Whether it's man, whether it's zone, whatever it is, they should play better. And I think we're starting to see signs of that. I really thought that last game, really the last game or two, was a step in the right direction.
Aussie asks, basically you just touched on it, Ira, so we'll go by it. But it asks, do you think FSU will follow the UNC defensive plan or sit in zone with a 3 or 4 man rush? But to your point.
No, I think they're going to come after him.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one. Go Noles 88. Why our offensive line all fall on the ground when there is nobody near them to block? People say cut blocks, but that just looks way weird. Never seen it perform quite like that.
It had to be cut blocks. I mean, what else could it be? And if people don't know, there were 2. I don't know. I've seen at least 2 videos of plays where Florida State's offensive lineman just plopped to the ground, and they didn't make any contact with the NC State's defensive lineman. They just kind of flopped to the ground and kind of got in the way a little bit. I assume it's got to be cut blocks. One of the throws was a real quick pass, and the idea behind a cut block is you're not moving the defensive lineman. You're just trying to get him down or at least distract him by going low at him. And then he's got to use the way a defensive lineman combats that when somebody's going to cut block them is they use their hands to shed the block. So now they don't have the hands up in the passing lanes, as somebody mentioned earlier. So, and a lot of times you'll go to quick slants and things like that where you need a clear lane to throw to, clear lane to throw through. And so I think that's what they were trying to do. But they didn't do it very well. On one of the videos, they don't make contact with anybody, but it works out okay. The second one, they don't make contact with anybody, and the defensive linemen just kind of run right around them. My dog's attacking me right now, so I need to cut block my dog. But
don't do that. Pete will be coming for you, man. Don't do that.
But anyway, the second one, they were so far away they didn't even get any close to him. And it just looks silly. But I think that's because they're not very good at it. It's not something they've done a ton of. But I can't imagine why else would they have done it. I mean, there's no other explanation for doing that. Yeah, but it would be a good question to ask. Maybe we can ask Kendall this week at practice. We only have 1 day of availability since that last game on Monday, and it didn't come up.
Yeah, I don't think they were doing the whole fainting goat thing. I don't think it's like a diversion, like, oh, look, they're falling on the ground. What are we supposed to do? I don't think that was it. Trick questions is the next theme here. We got 2 questions, one from Max Diesel again, and then Gort loves the Noles. Ira, how many gimmick or trick plays do you see Florida State running? I think we will need a few to keep Clemson off balance. Max Diesel says over, under the number of trick plays, 1.5. Yeah,
I mean, I would definitely think it seems like we're seeing a wrinkle or 2 every game. I mean, I think it depends on what you classify a trick play, but I think they'll do more of that option game where you get 2 backs running the option together, maybe Cam running the option with Kalen Layburn. I think that it wouldn't never surprise me to see DJ Matthews look to pass, if he gets the ball in the flat. So yeah, I mean, I think they'll probably run at least 1 trick play, maybe 2. 1.5 is probably a good number. I'll go ahead and say over. But whether or not they work, I think is a whole other story. Clemson's really well coached. I mean, Brent Venables. We talk about the talent they have. They're also really well coached.
Next question. Back to the diamond. Ragnar Red. What is the ceiling for the baseball team this year? Any big-time prospects coming in that can contribute immediately? That one, I'm not, I think, I don't know. Meat mentioned the fact that recruiting was a little bit more dicey this year just because of the transition, but also I think they didn't really lose a lot of people, really. I mean, they were such a young team. I don't think there was a lot of scholarships to free up for big-time prospects. The ceiling is Omaha. I mean, you got C.J. Van Eyck. He's probably going to be preseason All-American. Velez or Drohan will probably be your number 2 starter. Both those guys. Velez came on really strong. And, with Robbie Martin and Nando DeSatos taking a step, you think, and Elijah Cabell and Matthew Nelson, they've got pop. So, yeah, man, super regional Omaha. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's not a team where you say, oh, there's no doubt they're going to Omaha, or there's no doubt they're going to be a top 10 or top 15 type team. But I think they got plenty of talent. And his concern about recruiting, I think, was more so about 2020, that next class that's coming in, because they really got hurt. The transition with Mike Martin and not knowing who the head coach was going to be, I think, kind of set them back. But no, they're talented. They should be good this year. And I think they're going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch them because they'll be different. He wants to be much more aggressive at the plate, which the players I think are excited about. He's going to be much more aggressive, and that means maybe swinging at more 3-0 counts. Not laying off some pitches that they've kind of been encouraged to lay off of in the past, and then also being more aggressive on the base pass. He wants them to be a better, more athletic team, to run more like the team. We saw them lose to Michigan out in Omaha. I think he likes that style of play. So I think you're going to see more of that. So I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun year, whether or not they go to Omaha or not. I think it's going to be a fun year just to kind of see a different style because we've seen the Mike Martin Sr. style for a long time.
For sure. Next question, Maxwell Gibbs. Against Clemson, do you believe that for Florida State to win, they would need to just score as much as possible? Or is this a game where they should try and control the clock more?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they're trying to. I don't think Kendall Briles is going to go into any game thinking I'm just going to try to control the clock. I mean, I think they want to score. I think they feel like what they do creates opportunities to score from a scheme standpoint. I think you feel like you got Tamarian Terry, Cam Akers, Kalen Leyburn, and DJ Matthews and Keyshawn Helton and Trayshawn Harrison, and I think they feel like they've got enough skill that they don't want necessarily to have the offensive line in positions all game where they've got to be predictable. I think they're going to try to score, and the way to make up for the offensive line is by tempo. So I think Florida State's going to play with tempo. They're going to try to score a lot. I don't know that it's necessarily outscoring Clemson because I think they're going to have to play great on both sides of the ball to win this game. The offense is going to have to play better than you would expect, which probably means scoring like 28 points at Clemson or more. And the defense is going to have to hold Clemson to 21 or less. And both of those are big asks. So, I mean, they're going to be big underdogs for a reason, but it's not going to be one side of the ball or the other. I think they're both going to have to play really well.
Next question, Gville Knoll. Offensive tackles. He's asking about likelihood of bringing in a JUCO or grad transfer. You've touched on that, Ira. But he does ask, when will Williams be back? I imagine Jawan, he means.
It sounds like they're hoping Jawan Williams will be back for the Clemson game. We saw him on Monday. He was a little bit moving gingerly. But he was back in uniform, and they were trying to get him out there. My guess is he would be available. He has a sprained ankle. It's been 4 or 5 weeks. So I think they got a good chance to get Jawan Williams back. And it would be big. I mean, not that Jawan's, an All-America left tackle, but he is the guy that they wanted to start there, not Abdul Bello. And I think there's a good chance he'll be back. Unless he had a setback, but I think there's a good chance he'll be back.
Knowles 93-97. Ira, does FSU still utilize the GPS system implemented by Fisher? Also, does the program still have the mental conditioning sports psychology component?
I think we've still seen the GPS things, right?
Yeah.
I think we're still seeing them. I don't know if it's as widespread as it was back then, but I believe they still use it. The mental conditioning, no, I don't think they do. Trevor Moad was the guy that Jimbo used. He was a guy that Jimbo liked and worked with for a long time. he left with Jimbo, and Willie's not real big into that, from what I can gather. Like one of the things Jimbo did and some other coaches do were in the preseason where they'll have all these coaches come in, or not coaches, all these guest speakers come in and do motivational speakers and guys that specialize in different aspects. Willie's not all that big into that. He's a little bit more old school in terms of the coaches handle that. So, I don't believe they have any kind of mental conditioning person. I think that it came with Jimbo and it left with Jimbo.
Drury asks, do you know if there was any level of mutual interest or inquiry last winter or spring for hiring Terrell Buckley until the NCAA ruling came, keeping us at 9? Thank you.
I mean, I definitely know, I know some people that know T-Buck pretty well, and he would have been interested, and he will be interested if it comes open this year. He has a good situation at Mississippi State, but he was definitely open and willing. He did not, I think there was a window of time after going into last season where he could have made the switch to Florida State if they could have made it happen, and they couldn't make it happen. Now he's, I would say he's locked in at Mississippi State. I mean, he's coached there another year. I think he's happy there to a degree. But T-Buck, as much as any former player I've ever covered, loves Florida State. Would love to come back to Florida State. His kids have gone to Florida State. His daughters. I think he would. I think he would come back in a heartbeat. And I think Willie Taggart has interest and expressed interest to T-Buck. They couldn't make it work out. I think mostly because of that David Kelly situation. But I mean, if T-Buck's willing to come back, I think the scenario that a lot of people are excited about is the idea that if Jim Leavitt did stay as defense coordinator and handled linebackers, or helped handle linebackers, and then T-Buck came in and replaced Harlan Barnett as defensive backs coach, that it would be a really pretty ideal situation. And T-Buck, I can't speak highly enough about him, not just as a coach, but as a human being, as a guide, like a guiding influence to the players. The players who played here when he was a GA still rave about him. Just a really quality person. And Florida State would do well to have T-Buck, on the staff. Yeah. Not just from his expertise as a coach, which I think is high, but also just as a person and as a leader.
I've seen a lot of tweets about his boss Joe Moorhead, the head football coach at Mississippi State. They've had a couple losses. The fan base is getting a little bit restless. They're talking about maybe Rutgers could be a possibility, like a landing spot for him because he has Northeast roots. Hey, maybe Buckley will be available, so who knows. Next question comes from EDJER54. I understand that Cam Akers is a beast and should be fed accordingly, but what exactly has happened to Anthony Grant, who saw quite a bit of action last season? I know I heard personal matters, but did he actually find his way into a doghouse? Is there an actual doghouse? Did he find his way into it? Did he walk right into it?
No, I don't think he's in a doghouse. I do think it's personal issues. I don't know exactly what happened, and it's one of those things where I think I responded to somebody on the message boards on the Tribal Council saying that it's one of those things we don't dig too far into when it seems like it's a legitimate personal issue. But early in preseason camp, we weren't hearing much about him, and I asked a couple of people around, and they said he was going through a tough time. It wasn't himself at practice. Like you could see him at practice, and he was not the guy. Last year, if you remember, when we would go out there for Nuck If You Buck, for the no drill stuff, I mean, Anthony Grant was always one of the first guys in there. He was real energetic, real into it, real, just kind of competed every play in the scrimmages. We heard so many great things about him, and you just heard nothing about him in preseason this year. But they even gave him some time away from the team early in the season where he wasn't even at practice for a week or two, for at least a week. And he's been back, but still doesn't seem to be where he was. And I think the last time we were at practice, either Monday or late last week when we were out there, I didn't see him at practice. So, I just think he's going through a tough time. And that could be a million things. I mean, it could be anything from a family issue to a grades issue to a health issue. I mean, it could be a million things. I don't know why, and I haven't pried into it. But I don't think he's in a doghouse. I think they're just trying to wait and see if he comes back into a better place. There's no doubt he's a talent. They've been lucky so far at that position. They haven't had any injuries. But really, with him not really being available, and at this point, it's hard to imagine he's going to become a factor. Your third string running back is Deontay Sheffield, unless they move Trayshawn Harrison over there.
Next question comes from Florida Man. Ira, how did you become such a better writer than Clark? He is so common. You are so elite.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of people have asked that. I don't know if I don't know if it's always the nature nurture thing. I mean, it could be just God's gifts, or it could be the work I put in. I don't know. Yeah, that's a great question. No, I think I'll ask Corey next time we talk to him and see what he thinks. I'm sure he's got a good opinion about it. It's a good question. It's a fair question. I mean, there's a lot of talk about that last year in November and December going into the recruiting season that there's a feeling that there's so much negativity from the fan base and the media. Everybody's taking shots at Willie that was going to hurt recruiting. And it may have. I mean, they didn't recruit well, but there's only so much you can do about that. People are going to complain when the team plays poorly. I would say this. I think that there's been a lot more positive chatter over the last week or two. I think people feel good about that. If you can beat, to me, the key with recruiting for this recruiting cycle is going to be finish pretty strong to the second half of the season. If you can go 7-5 or even 8-4 would be great. And if you can beat Florida and or Miami, if you can beat Miami and just play with Florida in Gainesville, I think recruiting is going to be fine. If you go and you lose to both your rivals again for the second year in a row, it doesn't really matter what the fans say. I mean, it would be a sign to the recruits and to their high school coaches that Florida State's not trending in the right direction. So to me, most of it's going to come down to play on the field. But as far as his overall question, yeah, I mean, I think Willie Taggart deserves credit for getting these assistant coaches in, realizing where he needed help, and the team is playing better, and they bought in to some degree because again, 3 weeks ago we thought they were done after the ULM game. I think most of us expected this season to be a disaster, and we were just going to be figuring out when the time was going to end for Willie Taggart. But they've bounced back and they played well, and they're not great, but they've certainly better than they have been. And with this staff, there's signs that they're going in the right direction. They just have to continue that, and then again get a 1 or 2 big wins, especially against a rival. I think would do wonders for recruiting. Yeah, Mike Martin Jr. sat down with Corey. I think after his first couple of days of practice as the new head coach, and Corey asked him a variety of topics, and so we'll have that Q&A. I think it's a written format. I don't think it's a video Q&A. And we also have, as you said, recruiting coverage coming up this weekend, and also starting some of our Clemson preview stuff because they'll be back at practice on Monday, and so we'll have. And from the recruiting update standpoint, the coaches are. I want to mention this. The coaches are out on the road now. That's why they didn't practice so much later in the week. So Michael will have updates from some of those kids where the Florida State's coaches were out visiting, and what some of the kids had to say about it. And then we'll also be teeing up some of our pre-Clemson coverage as we get into game week.